So a lot of you know that my background in college originally was I wanted to study and become a scientist. And something I find fascinating about science is that at its core, it depends on a step of faith. Now you might think, your entire life you've been told that the two are like polar opposites. But let me tell you, everything that we do, everything that they do in the scientific community, it depends at its core on a step of faith. How do we know that the laws of nature will continue to work the way that they do now? It is impossible to state with certainty that the future will resemble the past. For all we know, gravity could reverse itself tomorrow and explode the earth and every star. While I'm speaking, the speed of light could be reduced to nothing, plunging the entire universe into darkness. And who knows, Justin Bieber might someday produce good music. The philosopher David Hume pointed out that all of science depends on this unprovable assumption that the future will resemble the past. Now, we don't think of this like faith because in every test we've ever done, gravity works just about the same. And in every observation we've ever made, things like the speed of light remain constant. These laws, they work. And everything we've ever seen Justin Bieber do gives us no indication that he's going to, at any point in the future, produce what we would call good music. So it might be an assumption, but it's one that we can make with confidence, and in fact, we base our entire existence on this. You don't doubt that the sun will rise tomorrow because that's what the sun does. But let me tell you today that there will come a day when the sun does not shine. The skies, the Bible says, will wear out like an old shirt, and God will roll it all up like an old rug and change it. But His love will outlast all of it. There's this psalm, Psalm 118, and many of the psalms, all of them are written to be sung. And what this is written to do is a call and response. And so you had some people who would lead this procession into the temple, and they would call out part of it, and then all of the people there celebrating, worshiping, they would call out the response part. And I want to do that with you guys. It's real simple. You read the parts in red. All right, you guys ready? Give thanks to the Lord, for He is good.
His love endures forever.
Let Israel say,
His love endures forever.
Let the house of Aaron say,
His love endures forever.
let those who fear the Lord say,
His love endures forever.
and today let the church say,
His love endures forever.
the church has been saying this for thousands of years. In some translations, like the ESV puts it, His steadfast love endures forever. And he goes on in the song to explain why they're saying over and over again, there's this repetition, God's love endures forever. And he says, out of my distress I called on the Lord. The Lord answered me and set me free. The Lord is on my side. I will not fear. What can man do to me? And I love reading through the Psalms because some of them, they're written in the middle of the struggle. And we covered one of those. And he has almost nothing positive to say other than, God, please help me. And this is written looking back on a struggle like that and saying, I called on God to help me, and He brought me out of that. And because of that, I can say with confidence that His love endures forever. He also says, it is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in man. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in princes. And Israel, through the course of its history, had been betrayed over and over again. The kings had come and they had put too much weight on their alliances and other people promising to come and help them out. And then when they were finding themselves in need, they didn't come through. And I find a lot of people that they find it difficult to trust God because people have let you down. over and over again. I can tell you today, even the most reliable people will eventually let you down. My kids are learning this. Just this week, I was playing with Christine in the yard and grabbing her by the ankles and spinning her around. And we were having such fun until I dipped a little bit too low and she's spitting grass chunks out of her mouth. Everybody's going to let you down. So it is better to trust in God. In fact, if anything, the failures of other people should heighten our desire and our longing for a God who will never dip your face into the yard. He goes on, the writer, to describe exactly the depth of his situation. All nations surrounded me. In the name of the Lord, I cut them off. They surrounded me on every side. In the name of the Lord, I cut them off. They surrounded me like bees. They went out like a fire among thorns. In the name of the Lord, I cut them off. There's that repetition again. I was pushed hard so that I was falling, but the Lord helped me. So the writer of the psalm describes how bad a situation he was in. He wasn't fighting a lingering hangnail. He wasn't just somebody like gossiping about him at work. Not just one enemy. He says, there is a host of armies assembled against me. They came at me like a swarm of bees, but I struck them down. And here's the ironic thing. When you look, I want you to think right now, look back on the struggle that you've had. The bigger the problem that you faced, the better the comeback. Isn't that when God's mercy and His power shines most clearly in our lives, is when our situations are the most desperate? But in the moment, it doesn't feel like that, does it? In the moment, all we see is the depth of our challenge. This has been a crazy week for me. I took calls this week from one person called me up late at night saying, I'm considering taking my own life right now. I see no hope for the future. I've no desire to continue living. I received another call 2 days after that, a former student of mine, and just unraveling the broken road that her life had taken as she became addicted to heroin and cocaine. And she's telling me that, I'm in this unsafe relationship and I've got a baby now and I want to get off the methadone and I don't want to go back to dancing in strip clubs. And there is this despair and at the same time an understanding that even from those depths, she wanted God to rescue her. And so I have these conversations with people all the time like that. And trying to tell them, yes, your situation may feel impossible, but God is the one who makes all things work. And that's just the before picture. Nobody on those diet commercials, right, has like a before and after picture that, the before picture is not identical to the after. They advertise this is how good it works. And some of your situations, you're setting up the comeback. I watched a video this week. People describing 2 years ago leaving the Super Bowl early. Patriots fans, they were down 28-3 at halftime. And these lifelong Patriot fans, some of the thousands of dollars they spent on these tickets, and they look at it and say, we're sunk. This is going to be the worst blowout in Super Bowl history. I don't really want to stick around and watch this. And the one guy, with tears in his eyes, is like, I watched the best comeback in all of sports ever from a parking lot. I had seats in the midfield, but I checked out early. I didn't think there was a chance. And all those people who were texting me during the game saying, oh, this is so bad, you need to just leave early. Now they're texting me saying, why did you listen to me? And hear me, I don't want any of you to look at your situations and head for the exits. Because that's what we do. We throw up our hands and we say, I'm a lost cause. We're dead. We're nearly there. I see no hope. The greatest challenges in your life, God gets the most glory. A few weeks ago I mentioned the opening part of Paul's second letter to the Colossians, and he tells them about their time in Asia, and he used that phrase, utterly burdened beyond our ability, feeling certain that they were going to die. And here's what he says right after. I really wanted to include this in that message, but I wanted to put it off until now. He says, He delivered us from such a deadly peril, and He will deliver us. And this past tense ensures the future tense. On Him we've set our hope that He will deliver us again. Paul looks back and he says, you know what, He brought us, we were convinced we were going to die. It's on the way out. We were going to be crushed. And God brought us out of that. And having seen that in my own life, I can state with confidence now that He's going to do the same thing again. He doesn't even know at this point what future trials He's going to face. He just says, it's an open-ended thing. Whatever happens, God's going to bring me out of it, or through it. And this applies to every situation, because God is the same. Many people are familiar, if you've been through Sunday school at all, right, as a kid, you've heard the account of David and Goliath. And this giant shows up and he's taunting the armies of Israel, who's man enough to come out and fight me? And nobody goes out. And he does this day after day, and this little shepherd boy, David, shows up and says, hey, I'll fight him. And there's this conversation that David has with the current king Saul. And Saul said to David, you're not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are but a youth, and he has been a man of war from his youth. So he looks at him and says, you are a shepherd. Like you're a janitor. Nothing against janitors, but you don't have fighting experience like this guy. He has been trained to kill people like you since he could walk. You can't do it. And Saul has kind of a point here. There's a reason that everybody has been in fear of this guy. But listen to David's response. But David said to Saul, your servant used to keep sheep for his father. And when there came a lion or a bear and took a lamb from the flock, I went after him and struck him and delivered it out of his mouth. And if he arose against me, I caught him by his beard and struck him and killed him. Your servant has struck down both lions and bears, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be like one of them, for he has defied the armies of the living God. And David said, the Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. Now here's the thing. David, he had fought animals, but he had no experience as a soldier. Saul did. In fact, not only did Saul have experience as a soldier and as a warrior, God had repeatedly delivered enemies into Saul's hand. So Saul, at this point in the conversation, could have said, you know what? By God's hand, I've defeated the Amalekites, the Moabites, the Ammonites, the Edomites, the king of Zobah, and I've defeated Philistines before. So you know what? You're right. I can do this if God is on our side. But Saul doesn't say that. All he sees is a problem he hasn't faced before. A warrior bigger than anything they had seen before, challenging somebody to one-on-one combat. And he says, I can't do it. And not only I can't do it, he's discouraging the people around him and setting the tone as the commander of the army. You can't do it either. David here does not claim a unique ability to fight. He's not saying, I am secretly the best fighter in this entire army. What he's saying is, the trials are different, sure. But the same God who rescued me from wild animals is capable of handling some guy. And if he is still with me, I don't care how big he is. I can do it. And so David looked back at what God had done in his life up until that point and correctly said, if God can handle those things, he can handle this. You're going to find yourself in similar spots. I mean, we kind of have the assumption, right? I'm always going to be in situations I feel like I can handle, or even, that it's going to resemble something I've overcome in the past. But at some point in your life, you're going to run into something that you've not faced before. Maybe you've been a skilled worker all your life, the kind of person just you can fix everything. You've always, overcome that stuff, and later in life you run into health issues that you can't solve. And for the first time in your life, you're saying, I can't fix this. And you're either going to face it as Saul did or as David did. Every generation needs to go through this process. Every one of us, there's going to be times when we need to remind ourselves of what God has done to encourage our faith for what he's going to do in the present. And so Psalm 118 is not just sung in the regular temple worship, it's quoted again in Ezra chapter 3. The people of Israel, in the intervening time, they had been conquered by all the nations, gone into exile. God brought them back to the land, and now they're beginning to rebuild the temple, even though countries all around them are really angry about this. And as they begin to lay the foundations, they walk around it singing this, the Lord, he is good, his love endures forever. They were saying the same God who was faithful to Abraham, the same God who brought us back from exile, he is now protecting us from our enemies. That's why we sing in churches today, his love endures forever. Many of you know the song. Let me tell you, church, it's time for you to raise your Ebenezer. There's blank looks. I always felt the same when I heard that song, the come thou fount of every blessing, and he gets to this verse, he says, here I raise my Ebenezer, and I always was like, man, why is it's a weird hard left into the Christmas carol there in the middle of this song? But what he's referencing is this verse out of 1 Samuel. God gives Israel victory over their enemies. And so they have this battle, and then God confuses their enemies, and they begin to flee from them, and they pursue them mile after mile. And what happens is when the day is done, Samuel takes a stone and set it up between Mizpah and Shen, and called its name Ebenezer, which means stone of helping. And he says, till now the Lord has helped us. He set it up as a permanent marker and said, this is how far God brought us. So every time anybody's walking through the area, oh, that's the stone of helping. That is how far God brought us. It's this physical object to act as a reminder because they would face battles again. Perhaps it would have been good for Saul to go and visit the stone of helping to be reminded what God had done. There's all kinds of different ways that we see these tangible reminders used in Scripture. You have like the psalmist who wrote songs that they would sing over and over again. Moses, when he brought them through the Red Sea, he immediately taught them a song and said, teach this to your kids so this stays with you. Joshua, when God parted the Jordan River and they crossed it, he told the people, as we're going through, we're going to grab 12 rocks off the bottom of this giant river, and we're going to set them up on the other side. And that's going to be a memorial. So you take your kids there and you say, yeah, those rocks, we walked through that river on dry ground. And that is what God has done for us. You have the festivals that Israel would celebrate, like the Passover feast. And year after year, they would say, God brought our people out of slavery. Because then there's this expectation that he can deliver us as well. I'll say for myself, one of the things I do is I keep a collection in my office of crosses from various points in my life. I have one that was carved by hand by my grandfather. A reminder of God's faithfulness through my family line. And I've got one, it's a very simple ceramic cross, but it was given to me by a classmate as I went through Bible college, as a reminder of the way that God provided for me then. And I'll tell you that I'm thinking a lot about that right now because I'm in the process of applying to master's degree programs for an online course of study. This is something I've wanted to do for a long time. When I tried to do this 5 years ago, they didn't even have online programs available for what I was wanting to do. And I'm talking with Sarah and our family situation right now. I'm a little bit scared going in. It's not going to be easy. I'm a little bit scared because the degree I have wasn't from an accredited institution. And so I'm having to plead with these respectable schools and say, hey, please make a special exception for me. But I'm reminding myself that, what's it now, 8-9 years ago, God, I prayed to you and said, I see no way possible to do what I feel you're calling me to do. You're calling me into ministry. God, you're just going to have to provide a way. And he did that before. So I can say today that I'm confident that if he's done that before, he's going to provide again. And so I'm raising my Ebenezer because I need that right now. In a practical way, I've invited some of you to do the same today, to give your cardboard testimony, to stand up and proclaim what God has done in your life. And very simple thing, and so, kind of mine, to condense into a few words, I was a college dropout. And then God allowed me to graduate. And I'm saying this as a declaration of faith that I'm going to do so again. And the reason I wanted to do that is you need to be reminded today. Some of you, you're going through something and you need that encouragement. You need to witness those stones that other people have set up in their life and say, if God can do this for me, he can do the same for you. And so what we're going to do is we play this last song. Those of you who brought signs, just one at a time, come up here in the front and stand for a few seconds. Let people see your before. And then what God has done in your life. Let's pray. God, I thank you so much that your faithfulness extends through all the ages. That in every generation, again and again and again, you have demonstrated that your faithful love, it endures forever. And so God, as we face challenges in our life, as we face uncertainty and things we haven't faced before, I pray that you would remind us of those times, not just in past generations, not just in other people's lives, but in our own lives, that you have come through and you will do so again. In your name and in your power.